Record. We're cooking with gas. All right. Wonderful. We have one more person than we had before, I believe. Is that correct? All right. Wonderful. So why don't we, we're going to talk about book leveling. We're going to talk about IRIs. We're going to talk about running records today. And we're going to talk about the tutoring student thing, of course, because I want to check in and find out what's happening. But before that, why don't we go around and just kind of remind each other who we are and where we come from. I'm Tanya Halbeck. Please call me Tanya. I'm around UWM. I run the reading programs, and I know I'm helping several of you at this particular moment. So, well, I think I'll be, for example, I think Alyssa, we can talk in break or something. What do you think? All right. So that's me. Who would like to go next?
Me?
Would you like to go? Go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Alyssa. I teach kindergarten. Also, you guys will probably see my dog. He'll jump on my lap, and you'll probably see me yelling at him. He's occupying himself right now, just so you know. So don't be surprised if he pops up on my lap.
See, I think that's the benefit of being online, is that we get to see all the
pets,
all the kids. You have a baby. I want to see.
He's something. He's coming up right now. There he is. Yeah, there he is.
Oh,
yep.
Look at you. Oh, what a love. Look at that boy.
Okay, it's up. Okay. Yeah, he's nuts.
Aw. Very cute.
Okay.
Thank you, Alyssa. Who's next? Who would like to go next?
I can go. I'm Hannah, and I teach second grade.
And where?
In the school district of South Milwaukee.
South Milwaukee. I'm going to memorize this eventually. Right? I'll still confuse them. I am pathetic at memorizing. Thanks, Hannah. Who's next?
I can go.
Oh, Lydia.
Go ahead, Lydia. Oh, okay, I'll go. All right. I'm Ash Bearcat, and I teach 8th grade social studies in Racine at Starbuck IB Middle School.
Did you say Starbuck?
Yeah, Starbuck IB Middle School.
It kind of
Named
sounds
after
like a
Frank R. Starbuck, a newspaper person in Racine, apparently.
Ooh. You know, I really like that name. For a lot of reasons, not just the coffee.
I am Lydia. I teach 7th grade literacy, so I teach reading and writing, and I teach in Franklin, which is just outside of Milwaukee.
Wonderful. Who else would like to go?
I am. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm Tamika. I work as a special ed assistant at the Next Door Foundation. I have a headache today, so if I look like I'm grimacing, just know that I'm not frowning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm okay.
I have problems with persistent migraines. Like I wake up with them almost every day. And I am very happy today because I just got my doctor to put me back on the good meds. So that's part of my smile today.
That's good. I just don't want to give the wrong impression.
I know what you mean. I think I've got wrinkles specifically because of
right.
You know, because well, I hope it goes away.
Okay, thank you.
Who else? Oh, Elizabeth.
Hi. I'm Beth, and I live in Wanakee, which is a small town right outside of Madison. And I'm just kind of getting back into teaching now that my kids are both occupied with other things. So I've run a tutoring business for quite a few years. I teach summer school in the Wanakee School District. I teach remedial reading and writing for 5th and 6th graders. And I'm just going to be starting here in the next couple weeks as a sub at Walbridge School in Madison, which is a private school that works with kids with specific learning disabilities.
Cool. Very good. Thank you. Hannah?
Hi, I'm Anna. I am a 7th grade reading and writing teacher at East Guadalupe Middle School in Milwaukee.
Wonderful. Thank you. Danielle? Oh, we can't hear you. It might be your.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my name's Danielle. I am a 6th grade reading and writing teacher and 6th grade Read 180 teacher in New Holstein.
Thank you. Aaron. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Sarah. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Our Avenue for Milwaukee Public Schools.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Aaron, I think your audio is on. Oh, there, and now it's off. But all right, so why don't we go to Carrie? Because she might be.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations.
All right. I joined late, so this is all new to me. I am a stay-at-home mom currently. I have my teaching degree in 1 through 6. I taught 1st grade, and then I decided to stay home with my kids. So I have 2 of them are in school full-time, and then I have a 4K, and so I wanted to get back into reading. So I figured, why not start now? And I have a husband who's deployed for the next year. So I might as well add more stuff to my plate.
Yeah, because, you got nothing else, obviously.
He's here, right, by the way. He's right
Oh, that's wonderful.
No.
Backing you up there.
Yes.
Thank you, Carrie.
Mm.
And Erin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry. I'm driving.
Oh, right. So why don't you give her the, what is it, 411? Did I get that number right?
My name is Erin Peterson, and I teach 7th grade balanced literacy and social studies at Frank Lloyd Wright in West Allis.
Frank Lloyd Wright. Awesome. I see it. Last week I didn't catch some things. Frank Lloyd Wright. Love it. It's my old art history coming to the fore. I'm like, whoa, that would be a great place to be. Thank you.
It's a school that Frank Lloyd Wright would actually hate.
Oh, really?
It's designed with 0 windows.
Oh.
I used to teach there. My classroom had no windows. It was kind of miserable.
There are about 6 classrooms in the entire building that have windows in them.
Yeah, he would hate that. That is so, he's all about nature. He'd what? Oh, that's so wrong. What are you gonna do? I guess they just named the school in honor of him, but certainly didn't choose carefully about the building. Oh, golly. How do you teach in a classroom without windows?
I generally have no idea what the weather is doing. Last week it downpoured all day, and I had no idea.
Oh, my God. You kind of go into like a void or a vacuum. Wild. Well, anyway, thank you, Erin. You stay safe driving there. All right. So welcome. And now I'd kind of like to go around. I probably should have done this while we were doing. How are you guys doing as far as finding a student? I'm going to start right now. I want to write these things down. Let's go around and try to find out where you are in the process of finding a student or at a level. Anybody want to report first? Tamika or Aaron? You're both
I was just,
shifting.
I can go first.
Okay.
I'm going to work with my son.
Right.
He's a 6-year-old.
Perfect. Got a pen that doesn't work. So you're going to work with a 6-year-old. So that kind of puts you in observation survey group.
I can't hear you. I think someone else has their. Okay.
Aaron, could you put yours on mute? I think maybe. Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, that was it.
All right. As I struggle to find a pen that works. Pencil, that works. All right. So you'll be in the observation survey group, I think, in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the observation survey. All right. And all right. Who else knows or is, where are you now anyway? Sarah?
I'll share. I just finished STAR testing all of my kids in reading. Just today.
Congratulations.
So I've kind of honed in on 2 little girls. I need to figure out which one I want to do. Both are reading well below grade level.
So what grades are we
want to say
talking?
the second?
My classmate.
Okay, so they're reading in like the 2nd percentile, 90 scale score for STAR. Both of them are. So I'm waiting to get their media release forms back, and I'm doing fluency testing with them tomorrow, and then I'll make my decision on which one I want to work with.
Excellent, excellent. So you're probably in the observation survey group too, because it sounds like they're in like 1st and 2nd grade levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. 3rd grade. All right. Can't spell survey while in public, I guess. All right. Who would like to, who knows next? Alyssa?
I can go. I have an idea. I have 2 students specifically. I don't know if ELL takes that into account. I don't know if it makes a difference. But I'm kindergarten, so I'll obviously be using PALS.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the 3rd week, the beginning of the 3rd week of school, so we're just doing a lot of hoping that I get through reading without having to stop. So I have an idea of 2.
Great. And ELL might be involved in
yes. 2. I have 3 that I know will be getting reading services because they're on the little lower side from the test scores from last year. Gotcha. And 2 of them are ELL. So I haven't decided yet which specifically.
Now, do you do PALS already as part of your?
No. So PALS, our window, I believe. Oh, do we? Yeah, we do it. Okay. But our window for PALS, I believe, is like October 9th to the 22nd or something like that.
Okay. That's fine because that'll fit nicely, I think, in here. But you're going to be first on the docket. You're going to explain how to do PALS to the rest of the group.
Okay. Sounds good.
I think it's next week. So if you're going to have to like.
Okay. I've done it before. I'll do my best.
Okay. It's a little different on mine, but whatever you can do, you can kind of,
Okay.
All right. Thank you. You may be alone. We'll find out. How about we do it that way? Does anybody else think they're in the kindergarten or PALS group? Yep. You may be alone. Oh, really, Sarah? You're thinking maybe that low?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to send home 1st grade sight words already because they didn't know them.
Well, that's 1st grade. PALS would be mostly like kindergarten.
Oh, we do PALS up until 2nd grade.
Okay, so you might be able to help her. So would you like to go in that group as well?
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of PALS assessments. Okay. I taught kindergarten before 3rd grade, so I can go with PALS.
Okay, let's do it that way then, so that there's a group. That's fantastic. Thank you for doing it. Thanks, Sarah. All right, Lydia, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I also did MAPS testing today.
Congratulations.
So looking at those MAP scores, and I have some running records from last year, but not all of my students. I sent home an email today just asking a mom if she's okay with it, asking for the media release. So I'm just kind of going to see if she's going to respond. Email honestly can be hit and miss. So if she doesn't respond by Friday, I'll send another email to somebody else and ask.
Great.
So just a 7th grade gentleman who is definitely below grade level and needs a little extra assistance.
Wonderful. Did you you have a preference, QRI or BRI?
I don't know.
Basic reading inventory or QRI. Well, then why don't we hold on, because maybe somebody else has a preference and you can be in their group.
Okay.
All right. All right. So I'll just put B or QRI. All right. Wonderful. And Hannah.
So I have a 2nd grade student who's actually in my class last year in 1st grade who is identified as a struggling reader. So this year I'm just progress monitoring him. So I thought he was a good candidate anyways. We do PALS in 2nd grade at my school too. So if we need another person in the PALS group, I wouldn't mind doing PALS. But otherwise I can run another group.
Yeah, we might. So,
okay.
Because it sounds like observation survey might be,
okay,
a group 2 that needs help. So we've got one person in observation survey. I don't want her to be alone either. So we'll just keep going here and see if we can balance you guys out. I'll put that. We've got kind of, both of you are kind of either or. Great. Okay. Who would like to go next?
I'll go.
Anna?
We're doing MAPS tests next week, and so I'll get more accurate scores then. But from previous scores, I learned that one of my students I'm a 7th grade, and he's at like a 4th grade, 3rd, 4th grade level. Also, when I met his dad was like, please help him figure out like reading. And I was like, well, that's my job. So I think that would be a good student for this tutoring project.
Wonderful.
And I'm not sure which. I have the observation survey book from a friend. Is that for him?
Nope. That would only go up to about 2nd grade. So 3rd grade's pushing it even. But a 4th grade reader, you should probably do the BRI or the QRI.
Okay.
And so we'll put you in that group for now and see where the others are there. Okay. Thank you. It's part of what we're doing right now. Who else has an idea? Elizabeth?
I have a little girl, a 2nd grade reader who struggles in 1st grade and had some help in school in 1st grade, but is already starting to struggle now. And so her teacher is a friend of mine, and I called her up to see if she had any ideas for students, and she had one. She was going to call me anyway. So
perfect. So we'll start you with a 2nd grade reader. We'll put you in the observation survey group for sure, because that gives Tamika a partner, and then the others are probably pals. Wonderful. Thank you. Lydia.
I just looked on Amazon because I knew I ordered one of the books, and I ordered the BRI book. It just hasn't arrived yet. So if possible, that's the book I ordered.
Let's keep with that.
I don't have it yet, but I did order it, so it hopefully will be here soon.
All right, I'm putting you in the BRI group then.
Okay, thank you.
We could just definitely do that one. There is no sense to spend extra money if you don't have to, really. All right. Who would like to go next? Danielle?
So I talked to you at the end of last class that we have a new student who was homeschooled and is extremely, extremely low. We're guessing, and I'm going to guess at about a 1st grade level, but we do STAR testing next week, and I already did the SRI, which is our reading inventory for Read 180 with him, and he couldn't do that at all.
Right.
So I think I need to talk to Mom yet, but I think I'm going to try using him, but he also is dyslexic and just has all of these things working against him. So
Well, this is a good person to kind of focus on. I mean,
Yeah.
the ones that aren't an easy nut to crack. That's what this class is about.
no, not at all. So, and I got, I think it's a QRI book. I'm not really sure, but
All right, then you're in the QRI thing, but you might want to double check that before we
I'll go look right now.
decide. I'll put QRI by you, but we can check
Sounds good.
in pencil. All right. Let's see who's left. Ash?
All right, so I just started looking at MAP scores. We're going to test sometime in the next couple weeks, but I was looking at last year's MAP scores, and I'm going to do my own assessment this week. But I've already kind of pinpointed a handful of kids that I can choose from, and I too already have the basic reading inventories book.
You're in
the kids that I've picked range, they're a couple of them are upper elementary levels, and a few of them are in the mid elementary levels, like 3rd and 4th grade, 2nd grade, a couple 5th grade reading levels.
Perfect. Yeah. Very good. Okay. So yeah, so that's definitely in the QRI, BRI range. So, all right. I'll put you down for that then. Thank you.
Yeah. I bought the BRI book on Amazon. I bought the old edition. That's cool, right? Because
oh yeah,
I got it super cheap.
That's the name of the game here. Yeah. No. These things don't change terrifically over time. I mean, they update readings or something, but they might have more exciting readings or color pictures, but that's about,
Sounds good.
The basics are the same. All right. Let's see, we've got Erin, but she's driving. I'm not volunteering her just yet. And Carrie, what's your situation?
All right, since I'm a stay-at-home mom, I don't have a classroom. I tutored a little girl. I have two choices. I tutored a little girl. She's now going into 5th grade, but I did some running records on her last year when I tutored her, and she was running at a 1st grade level. She's homeschooled. She was tested for dyslexia last year. Otherwise, my other choice is one of my son's friends, who I've become really good friends with her mom, and she's in 2nd grade. And I don't know what level she is at as far, but I think she's below 2nd.
So in both cases, we're talking about kind of 1st and 2nd grade levels.
Yes.
And so I would think observation survey might be a good niche for you as well. All right. Okay, so we've got some good balances here. Oh wait. Who did I put QRI down for? Teaching Anna? Okay. I did wait. I said BRI QRI for you.
QRI or BRI for me.
Right.
What did you have the QRI book also?
Oh, Danielle. Okay. I didn't write down your name when I did that. I couldn't figure out who it was. All right. So, okay. So Danielle, what did you say? You have a BRI or a QRI? Q. Good. All right.
Sorry, I have a dog barking.
Hey, no problem. So, okay, let's say Anna and Danielle QRI. That sounds like a really good, we've really got a nice balance here. I think everybody at least has a partner, which is great. It doesn't leave anybody alone. And even better, I think some of you have some experience, at least with PALS, for sure. So that, that one, because it's coming up so fast, I'm particularly glad you don't have to do as much research, because you'll be familiar. And I love it that we've got people from both the kindergarten and the 1st and 2nd grade levels. So we could, because I know those are different packs and they're different groups of tests. So that'll give us a nice range as well. it just so happens I've got the PALS kindergarten right next to me here, ready to go like a gunslinger, right? I'll test you. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. And Erin, we'll wait until she's safe to chat with her. And then let's see. But already I can see that we have plenty. So at the end of this class, I'm going to give you some chance to talk with your some time to talk with your people. We'll break you up into breakout rooms. I'll put you guys in your own rooms so you can you know, divide up work or you know, just generally plan. And I'll be doing that at the end of most of our sessions for the next month or so. For those of you that need it, and other people can just say, "Did mine, thank you," and leave. Okay. So, are there any questions? Okay, that part is down. It looks like people are starting to sign up for videos and for tools. Are there any questions about any of those sign-up sheets or the assignments that go with them? Hearing none. I usually give kind of a knowing that you have to click on something to talk. I kind of give a little more wait time than maybe seems logical, but that's, you know, I know that that's part of the online thing. Okay, so great. Is there anything else we should talk about before we dive right into leveling and readability? Exciting stuff that it is. All right, you're ready to go. All right, let's do this. So, leveling and readability. Little caffeine. So, leveling and readability are two ways of talking about a similar kind of thing. And let me pull up, I've got a little, here, let me make sure that like your social security numbers aren't up. Okay, good. No social security numbers. No pause. All right. Here's your Zoom classroom information. I'm sure you know that. Oh, and thank you guys so much for your patience with my Canvas clumsiness. I am so sorry. It took me so long to figure out how to publish this stuff. I kept, you know, publishing it, and then I'd publish it again, and I'd publish it again, but there were like several layers of publishing, and I didn't realize that. So I thank you for your patience and your communication. It helped a lot. So you guys are going to teach me this, whether, you know, where they couldn't, the experts couldn't do it. So going down to class 2, book leveling and readability. Here's our stuff. So looking at the two, basically what they are designed to do is tell you how difficult a text is. And really, I would say this is probably most useful to a reading professional. It's not as useful to the students, though it can be, especially students who are older, and it gives them more control and power and understanding of what's going on. With younger kids, it can be dangerous for them to know their levels. It's kind of like being the bluebirds and the redbirds and things like that. So it can kind of quantify something too much that is really, really what the teacher is doing, right? I think book leveling and readability help a teacher. It's a tool for a teacher to understand how difficult the books they're giving the kids are going to be. They're not perfect. Neither system is perfect, but they do give us a clue, especially when you're just beginning and you don't even know what to look for in a book, you know, how it's going to make it more difficult or easier for your particular student. It's great to have these readability levels. You find the student's level using assessment, and then here are these levels that are going to tell you, you know, that are going to give you at least a decent, at least a decent approximation of a book that should be close. You know, it still could bomb the kid. It still could be too hard for the kid, but or too easy. But at least it's better than nothing, right? So, like I said, there are two words for the exact same thing. Excuse me. But they come at it very differently. And I think of it in terms of quantitative and qualitative. So readability was the first one, and it comes out of kind of quantitative minds and usually involves an equation. They were looking kind of scientifically at how do I quantify the difficulty of a reading. And there are lots of ways to quantify the difficulty of a reading. And actually, I think it's right here. Readability formula. This is, right. This is the link right here. So you've got the link if you want to look at it. But it's a free readability checker calculator. You cut and paste or you know, type some of the text in this box, and it'll tell you how difficult it is. Now, warning, you might want to check in different places because different paragraphs can be very different levels in the same book. But here's the Fleisch reading ease formula, the Fleisch-Kincaid grade level formula, the Fogg scale, the Smog index, the Coleman-Lau, the automated readability index, the Linzer-Wright formula, and there are even more. Oh my gosh, this leaves off some others. So there's tons and tons of ways to think about it. But most of them, of these quantitative scores, involve sentence length, like how many words are in an average sentence, and how many syllables are in the words. So they use word length and sentence length as an indicator for difficulty. And sometimes that does work, but Hemingway is a very simple writer, and Holy Toledo is his work difficult in some ways. You know, it's not like you can just get your head around that. So there are lots of ways to be difficult and lots of ways to be easy. But so readability isn't going to catch them all, but it's a really quick and easy way to get there. It's particularly useful, I think, with content area teachers who are like, oh my gosh, I've got this textbook I'm dealing with. What level, you know, can I expect my kids to understand? If they test it and they find out, oh my gosh, I'm teaching, you know, 8th graders and this is at a college level. Wow, I've got to really support my students in getting through this. You know, it's a useful tool. But as I said, it does miss quite a bit. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. Now, oh, I see. So leveling came later, right around the time of Mari Clay and Running Records. So leveling involves qualitative things. So, for example, I was involved in leveling some books for a school once, and a bunch of us reading teachers would sit around in a circle, and we were looking at the books for how many patterns or reading patterns are in the book. Like for a first grade book, a lot of times they'll all have the same grammatical pattern. Like, I like red, I like blue, I like cats, I like dogs, you know, and things like that. So it'll have the same pattern all the way through, and then it'll break that pattern on the last page. I like, or I'm lucky, or something, you know, just and that'll be like the challenge. So if it only had 1 to 2 patterns in the book, it would be in say a very early stage, while if it had 3 or 4 patterns in the book, it would be in a later stage. So you're looking for harder things to quantify. They talk about a link between pictures and text being an early measure, while, you know, breaking that link puts you in, say, 4s, 5s, 6s, and when you really have to use chunking for words, it'll put you in a 7, and so forth. So I mean, they're really looking for the kinds of things, qualitative pieces of the book, not something that you could quantify necessarily. It's not just syllables. It's not just sentence length. They're looking for more characteristics of the book. And it takes into account subjective factors. In fact, in that same context, we would have, for example, I was in Florida, and we had a book that talked about mittens in Florida. Well, it actually was all about snow and mittens. I mean, winter, and we didn't have it. Our kids didn't know it, and you know, thinking about, I mean, they didn't know the difference between gloves and mittens. They were lucky to know those words, you know, in first grade. So we ended up, you know, the suggested level for that book was, I don't know, I can't remember. Let's say it was 4, but we had to put it up at 7 because it was so difficult, because they had to rely more on their knowledge of how to read the word, and they couldn't rely on their context, their background knowledge to read those like kids up here would. So we were able, in a leveling system, to move books based on our understanding of leveling and where it belonged and things like that, and based on the context we were in. So leveling is not as strict, you know, readability formulas. This is how many syllables, this is how many, you know, words, you know, this is the level it's at, where leveling offers more wiggle room. You know, it offers a different kind of situation, and the level of a book in one state, school, can be very different than in another. Hi, Erin, how are you doing? So there are different approaches to basically the same thing, to trying to figure out how we can help teachers to understand how difficult a book or a text of any kind might be. Readability is great for things that aren't leveled. Leveling takes some time and some, you know, understanding. And readability is kind of a quick and dirty. So you can always get a readability level. You can't always get a level, a leveling level. So why do I mention this? Oh gosh, see, this is where what I do. I just start right in thinking everybody's going to know. But why would I mention book leveling and readability? Because when we're doing assessment, that's often one of the main things we're looking for is the level of the book that a student can read, the level a student can read successfully without difficulty. Now, I think a good thing to talk about here are useful theory. Here we go. Where'd it go? Come back, come back. Okay. That's not it. Apologies. Oh, all right. Don't worry about that. So, okay. So thinking about assessment, leveling is going to be an important piece here. We're going to have to find the level of a student. And I want you to think also in terms of what Vygotsky would call a ZAD and a ZPD continuum. And I didn't set up my little camera, but I'll do it this way. You might want to put on the speaker view instead of the gallery view, so you can kind of see what I'm going to show you, since I don't have my regular camera set up just yet. So Vygotsky often talked about a continuum, and you know, a continuum is a line, and I can't write backwards here. ZAD, the zone of actual, development, is on one end, and what's on the other end, and these are kind of long, would be what a student can't do. So can't do. All the variety of things, including calculus, organic chemistry. There's a great variety of things that a student can't do, and me too, right? But and then in there somewhere is the ZPD. So the zone of actual development is what the student can do independently and successfully. What can they read completely successfully? They pick it out from the library, they pick it up, they read it, they enjoy it, they can give you information from it, they can use the information. Those are all, that's ZAD. ZPD is in between those two things. This is what a student can do with support. And Vygotsky, I'll put Vygotsky down here, would say that support would be social. He believed it was social support that was the link. I think we look at that as being lots of different things. It could be social support, but it also could be other kinds of support that we offer them. So what a student can do with support, and that is kind of a fine line. There's a lot of things a student can do independently. There's a lot of things that the student can't do. But what they can do with support, it's kind of that next step. It's what they can do almost, but they need help to do. And we have to figure out not only what kind of things fit in this area, but also what kind of support you can offer to make this area even bigger, right? Because this is where they're going to grow. This is where they're going to try things that they haven't done before. This is where we're going. So if you look at it, what the student, I'm moving my stuff. Where am I going here? I'm not very good at this. All right, there we go. What a student can do independently and successfully, that's what we're going to try to identify using assessments, right? And the ZPD is what we're going to hope to do in lessons to get them to stretch and still be successful at things that they couldn't do independently. And then, of course, what they can't do, well, that'll get smaller and smaller the more they can do. And things that were once in lessons become some ZAD over time, and we just kind of move along this continuum, and I can't show it. So there we go. We just move along this continuum, hopefully. All right. So if you think about reading levels, one of the things we're going to try to do is find out what reading level they can read successfully, independently now. And there will always, I'll warn you with levels, there are always books that that will throw the kid. You know, there's always that book about winter when your kid has never encountered it, or, you know, there's always going to be those books that are just not a fit for the student staring you in the face. And you know, you got to work with it sometimes. So just because a student fails one book doesn't mean that's not their level. You might want to, you know, keep trying sometimes. I have definitely had a kid fail a book, say, let's just say at level 4, and then go on to read to level 9. So it must have been just the book, or who knows, maybe there was just something on the child's mind, or they felt sick at that moment, or whatever it is. Certainly it's good to just double check yourself. I have a tendency to say, all right, I've got a really hard book. You want to try it? And a lot of kids will say, oh, hard? You know, sure, I'll try it. You know, you don't have to pass it. It's, you know, or they don't even know there's pass fail involved. But I was like, if you run into trouble, we can just, you know, chuck it. But usually if it's kind of a no fault thing, kids will do it. And that brings up another thing, especially with struggling students. You're going to have to be very clear that what you're doing is giving them texts or other kinds of assessments that get harder over time. Because when they first start working with you, and some of you know these children well, since the day they were born, but some of you don't, and they're going to be worried, and they want you to be impressed with them. They want you to like them, even high schoolers, right? So you're going to want to warn them that, yes, this is going to get more difficult, and I'm looking for you to start messing up. That's the job here. So when they do start messing up, they don't start to crumble emotionally. You know, protect them a little bit and say, aha, that's what I'm looking for. So if they look like they're stumped and everything, you just kind of say, is that one hard for you? And they're like, yeah, like, I gotcha. You know, that's what you're supposed to do, that they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And all is well. And another thing you're probably going to have to do is tell them that with you, mistakes are good. You know, they may be afraid to make mistakes because, well, they've, you know, especially a struggling reader is often afraid to make mistakes because they've had some bad experiences. But I've been known to even, you know, when they knew they made a mistake, and I'm like, ha, this is great. We're gonna have a great time. If you can make mistakes in front of me, we are gonna have a great time. So, you know, that's you want to almost encourage the mistakes, not so that they do it on purpose, but you know, not that much, but that they're willing to do that, and it's a safe place for mistakes. Alrighty, so with leveling and running records, how do you find their levels? Well, you're probably going to find out when you start, if you haven't already, encountering some of these IRIs and testing batteries, that there is an oral reading piece to all of them, except for the kindergarten pals, I believe. But there's a little bit of oral reading with the kindergarten pals, not a ton. I think that has to do with that book that they read over, you know, like you read first and then they go. It's kind of, but and you can probably do this to a sort of, I don't know, not so hot running record with that, but you know, something. What we'll be doing with running record, I would like you all to do running records with that passage reading that you have to do. So when a student is reading, whether it's part of the QRI, it's not, you'll just add that in as they're reading those different passages. As they're reading the BRI passages, you'll be doing a running record of it, of the passage. When they're doing, certainly when they're reading books for the observation survey, that's part of the observation survey, so that's an easy one. I think the only trick with the QRI is that some of the passages can be silent. They can be silent reading, and that's super wonderful, and there's a whole host of things you can do around that to like think alouds and things to try to get at what they're thinking. But I wouldn't want everything that they did to be silent reading. So you're going to have to do some running records of it. And I'd like you to do that. And the reason why I want the running records part of it is because running records give us access to the meaning, structure, and visual that I believe I introduced last time. I did, didn't I? Did I do that? Okay. The meaning, structure, and visual that we'll start to review soon enough. But running records gives a way, and it's one of the only ones, other than maybe Think Alouds, that starts to give us an idea of what the student is doing during the reading. Lots of things can tell you what the student's thinking about before the reading. Lots of things can tell you what the student's thinking about after the reading. But during the reading, when they're actually kind of processing it all, crunching the problems, you know, problem solving, what are they looking at? What are they thinking about? Running records are actually the best way to get to that. And that will be somewhat useful for everybody. It's less reliable with the older students. Older students are, or I would say it's less valid. Let's use the lingo. It's less valid with the older students because older students after first grade are feel more comfortable reading silently. So they will probably they're more likely to comprehend, to read for comprehension, and to do their normal reading habits silently. If you have them read out loud, like if I had any of you read out loud, you might be focusing more on the performance and less on, you know, what you were reading. I don't know. How many of you have read a book to kids and realized you had no idea what you read? Yeah? Me too. Because you're doing the performance, right? You're focusing on, you know, and they do it too. That's why it becomes less valid with the older students, and we'll certainly be using other measures to get at things that they do, but it's still some useful information. With the younger students, it's just powerful and really important because if you're at a first grade, end of first grade level, before end of first grade level, very almost to a person, a student still needs that oral, O-R-A-L, AUREL, that spoken, heard feedback loop to read. they can't do it silently. So listening in on them reading out loud isn't as false and isn't as, again, performance based. It's more, it's what they do. It is how they read. And so you get that mirror, that window in, that is much more valid with those early readers. But again, as I said, it still gives you some information. So it's not like we need to throw the information out just because it's less valid, but it's useful for everybody. All right. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, so that's an introduction of sorts to running records, and we need a good 5 to 10 here, or maybe 7 minutes. 7 minutes. And I'll see you back around 6:08. Ciao, ciao. Hello, everybody. So, what we're going to talk about now is running records. Now, I'm pretty sure many of you have a lot of experience with running records. Show of hands, how many people have a good deal of experience? Okay, so quite a few. This is meant to get you kind of on an even playing field with that. We're going to do one every day for a little bit, also just to kind of get into practice as well, just in case any of you are out of practice. And let me give you a little bit of the history of running records. Running records come out of oral reading inventories, and these were tools that researchers used, and only researchers. People, probably some of the most forward thinking of them was Ken Goodman and his wife, whose name is just escaping me at this moment, or I wouldn't just call him his wife because she was very instrumental in the whole thing. But they were really looking at ELL students and their reading, and they wanted a way to really look into those. And so they created this system where the student would read out loud, and they would have to write down everything that the student said, and then they would code it. And it was very laborious. If you had one reading with, say, 20 mistakes, there was this long checklist of all these possible things. Was the first letter right? Was the middle letter right? Was the second, and all these, you'd have to check yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, basically just down pages of things for each error. So when Mari Clay was doing her dissertation, she was looking at this very helpful research tool and thinking it could be very helpful for teachers in classrooms. And that's why that's how she created, Yetta. His wife's name was Yetta. Anyway, that's how she used Ken and Yetta Goodman's oral reading tool that was being used by a lot of other people as well. But she created one that was teacher friendly, that could be used by teachers in a classroom. Downside, it's still pretty laborious. You have to do it one-on-one. You can't really do it class-wide. And for a teacher, that's a lot of time to spend on one kid. So for the most part, we're talking about using it with just the struggling readers. If you've got on-level readers or readers that are succeeding in even better than that, then you may not want to investigate them to this extent. But this is specifically a tool for a reading teacher to use. First grade teachers I gave running records to all my students. Weekly, actually, but it was built into the reading program. I mean, Lydia, look at you. But it was, because I had small groups with them every time, and as a warm-up, I would listen to them read, and so and do my running records. So it was kind of built in. I didn't do all my kids every day, but I did do them every week. Maybe the most successful readers maybe every 2 weeks, but just to kind of keep tabs on them, because they were first grade and they were changing rapidly. But beyond that, you may not wish to do it. And I was a reading teacher after all. I mean, I enjoyed it. So this tool that I've got here is considered kind of the industry standard, and I wouldn't have all of you do it if it wasn't a situation where if you're a reading teacher and you don't know how to do reading records, people are going to look at you like I didn't give you what you needed. I mean, it is a basic tool for a reading teacher. Every reading teacher should at least know how to do it and know what kind of information it can give. I will be focusing less on how to give it, even though I'll fly through that somewhat quickly, but I will be focusing more on what you can get out of it. So how to analyze it for meaning, structure, and visual. I think certainly classroom teachers don't always know how to do that. And the 2 to 3 hour in-services that many people learn running records in doesn't always stick. So even if they taught you how to do the MSMV, you may not remember, and I wouldn't blame you. I mean, it's a lot to get your head around. I keep saying it took me 3 years to really understand structure. If you to use it appropriately and right, 2 to 3 hours is just not enough time to really get your head around it. So, all right. So, for those of you that know it really well, bear with me. Kind of keep tabs. We're going to be talking about. I'm going to try to make it interesting, but if you want to sit back and relax a little bit, this is the time. So. Let me bring up my PowerPoint here. I'm not going to do a full screen kind of thing here, but can you all see it? Okay. Oh, and just real quick, I just saw Erin there. Erin, do you know who you're tutoring or what grade, what kind of level you're thinking your tutoring student might be?
I will be doing one of my 7th graders. My guess is they're probably at a 5th, 6th grade level.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're going to be in either the QRI or the BRI group. Do you have a preference?
Preference would be QRI.
You're in. All right. There it is. Let me write that down. All right. Okay. So, what are running records? Ken Goodman called them a window into the reading process. So it's as close as we can get. It's a one-on-one oral assessment. It's a way to identify a student's level, and more importantly, a way to determine the student's approach to reading so a teacher can identify the most appropriate and efficient way to instruct. So, and I will put this up, you don't have to write all this stuff down. I will give you the PowerPoint. So, you can write down notes, but know that you have access to the PowerPoint. And in terms of approach, there aren't very many assessments that allow a student to use meaning, structure, and visual. So to look at all the different kinds of things that a student might be using when they're reading. This is one of the few that does that. So that's one of the reasons that makes it so important. So you can see, where's my student really looking and where's my student not looking? What is my student using, and what is my student not using? So to prepare, you need level books. And I have some level books kind of collections or lists for those of you that need them. But many of you have them at your schools, I know. And certainly the QRI and the BRI already have the level books right there. So, so make sure you start with a text that you think will be easy. You want your student to kind of warm up. You'll get better stuff that way. The student will get some confidence and warm up. And have a running record sheet available. Now really, a running record sheet, I use a blank piece of paper. So once you get good at it, really all you need is a pen and a paper. Some people like to type out the text, and I would advise you to try to wean yourself away from the text, because it's a lot more it's, first of all, it's easier, and it's a lot more flexible if you can just pop behind a kid who's reading any book and do the running record. It's that way you don't have to prepare for it. You really can be ready for, you can have the child pick a book they're interested in and still get the information. And also make sure you're in a quiet place with chairs and a table. I've had too many kids start rolling once they didn't know stuff. And anyway, so do you have the right kind of leveled passages? I will warn you, if you have MPS's Journey series, that is, they call it a leveled system, but it isn't a sequential leveled system. A sequential level system means there's just one line continuum from difficult to, or from easy to difficult, and they're all in a row. And that's what, you know, these readability and leveling will get you. Journeys, unfortunately, is more complicated. So they have, you know, one unit, and it has easy, middle, and hard books. And then you go up to the next unit, and it also has easy, middle, and hard, but you don't know if this easy book is easier or more difficult than that hard book. And so it's not a leveled system. So if you have that, don't use that, use something, use a real leveled system. And they cannot be nonsense books. You want the student to be able to use meaning. So nonsense books aren't going to get you what you need. Or books that really don't make any sense, you'll want to ditch those. And if you know, even those early books, I mean, at least they have some sense. You know, the zoo, it's got a bunch of zoo animals in it. If it's all rhyming, it's not going to let your student use the meaning. If you want to see if your student does differently on nonfiction texts, make sure you have those. It's a really good idea. Nonfiction, some kids have read a lot of it and are familiar with it and understand how it functions, and have similar approaches to fiction and nonfiction. Some kids don't. Some kids, that is really a difficult thing. So that might be something you want to do. In starting a running record, explain the situation to the students. As I said, tell them that the text will get harder, and that they're expected to make mistakes. And then you tell the student the title every time. Titles are not leveled. I know in some districts they don't do that, but they're supposed to. The titles aren't leveled like the book is. So a title might be very easy or very difficult, but it shouldn't kind of count for the kid. It's actually counted as some of the information that the student would know going in. So it's kind of counted like the picture, like it's a hint for the student to be connected to what the story is going to be about. So if the story is about a bear and it's called a bear, that tells the student, okay, I'm going to start thinking what do I know about bears, and so forth. So do give the title, and then hand the book to the student, and they should be in control of the book and turning the pages. But a running record is 100 words max. After that, the idea is that the student gets a little tired. So you should only count the first 100 words. You can have them read more if you want them to finish the passage or finish the book or whatever, that's fine. But just use the first 100 words for your analysis.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on reading A to Z? The RAS kids, fluency passages?
Yeah, those are fine.
Those are pretty good. Okay, because that tends to be what I gravitate to do my fluency running records.
Yep, that is just fine. If just be careful, they do have nonsense books in there, but they have lots of different languages represented as well, so it can be a really wonderful tool.
Okay.
Other question. My school uses the Teachers College running records. Like you can just find them all online and it has those. Is that acceptable?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. She's basically used the she's just taken running records and put her own books in and stuff. Yeah, it's just a nice.
Well,
it'll make it easier
for the end of the alphabet, because otherwise it's hard to find those passages at times.
It is so hard. So I'm so glad that, it's nice.
Okay.
It's a nice tool. Though, Lydia, I know you're doing, I think you're the BRI or the QRI? BRI, right? So, thank you. So, because you're doing that, your passages might already be in the BRI. So you wouldn't have to do them in addition to that.
Okay.
All right. Now recording a running record. When you're first learning, you might want to audio tape it because kids talk fast, really fast, especially if you have more advanced readers like your third, fourth, and fifth graders. Holy Toledo, they can go fast. So, and if you use a check, that means they got the word right. You don't have to put what the word was, because really for a running record, if they get the word right, great. But let's move on. We're really looking for errors is what we're doing. Because errors is, if they get the word right, we don't really know why they got the word right, but an error can give us a hint about what they were using. And the idea here is that that when a student, whether the student gets it right or whether the student gets it wrong, either way, the student is probably using the same approach to the word. So they, that students have a certain approach that's been good for them at times, that's worked for them, and you've got to figure out, okay, maybe they're starting with the first letter and then adding that, and then thinking about the meaning of the story or using the picture or something, or they're thinking about the grammar. What is their, what are they thinking about when they go into this? What are they using to read? And you can pretty much expect them to do the same kind of thing when they get it right. They're just getting success with the same approach. So, so that's why if they get it right, just put a check. You don't have to worry about making sure you have the word under it. But when they get it wrong, you want to put, the word. Well, we'll see in a bit. But you want to document those. Now, when kids go really fast, instead of doing a whole check, a lot of the upper level teachers do like dots because it just goes so fast. And that's kind of an accepted modification. So if a student makes an error, you use the fraction format here. So you have what the student said over what the text said. So if you think about it, kind of what the student said is kind of a partial answer. It's not including everything if they got it wrong. So, and what the text said is kind of the whole. So it's a fraction format in many ways. And then you want to include kind of everything that they say. So what we're doing here is taking, they're kind of like notes, so that later, if a teacher wants to talk to the reading specialist or a special ed person or somebody, they can pretty much call up exactly what happened in that reading. And we're going to be looking at Aiden, who was, I can't remember, 19, he was doing this stuff in like 1991 or 92. He's probably a lot older now, but we can say exactly what happened there based on our shorthand here. So we're creating shorthand that you can use to document what a student said, so that you can analyze it and use the data later. So one shorthand piece you're going to want to know is SC. SC means self-correct. That means the student went back and by themselves self-corrected. You didn't intervene in any way. You didn't hint. You didn't even, be careful. You didn't even do this. Don't make face hints. I'm the worst about that. So I just have, because I smile. So I just have to smile through the whole thing. If they get it right, I go, I get it. So I just have to set myself, okay, I'm going to smile through the whole thing. Yeah. You do what you have to do. If a student says a sound and not a word, then you can use a lowercase letter. A lowercase usually means sound. So in the example, it says house, horse. So we know exactly what that student did. Other marking ideas include, you can use an R for a repeat. That just means repeated one word. And you can also use a dash to indicate that there was no word. So if there was no corresponding word that the student was, I'm sorry, R. The capital R is actually means the letter name. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So the capital, it means letter name, lowercase means sound, is essentially what I'm getting there. I'm trying to go a little fast. And then the dash means there's no corresponding word. So if it's on the bottom, the dash means that it was an added word, essentially, that the student added the word when there was no word in the text at that point. You can also use that editor's caret kind of thing if that's more comfortable to you. As well, if the dash is on the top, it means that the student didn't say anything. So they either skipped it or they didn't want to say it. So they just kept silent. However you want to, or whatever happened, the student didn't say something where there was a word. So use a dash for that. If the student repeats, you can use an arrow or you can use the R. Now, if you notice, I said the capital R meant letter name, and then this R after a kind of a line means repeated one word, that word. And because of that confusion, I tend, instead of using that line, I tend to circle those things, like the self-correct, I tend to circle it because it's in Scrawl anyway. The repeat, I'll circle an R just to really separate it so I don't get it confused with capital letters and things like that. Everybody has kind of their own shorthand, but just make sure it's consistent and easy for a professional to read, and you'll be fine. Another marking that's really, really important is this T, which again I circle, which means told. A told is tricky because it's what a teacher knows and not what a student knows. So you want to resist giving tolds if you can. And because Mari Clay knew teachers like me. When I started learning running records, I told answers back everywhere. I told my students not to do it, but I was telling answers left and right. I thought I was just helping out students that knew the answers, and that other students really kind of needed my support, and that's how I was going to support them. Once I did running records and I had to keep my mouth shut, I learned so much about my assumptions. So if you haven't done running records yet, don't give the answers. If you give a told, it will count against your student. And not only will it count against your student for that word, but if the word is like says and it occurs on every page, says this person, says that person, it's counted against the student every time it occurs in the book afterwards, because you can't depend on the student, it being the student's knowledge that brought it to that situation. So, and this is specifically to keep people like me from giving answers and wrecking my data, right? So it's a good idea. And we can go back a little bit. Some things count against the student, but some things don't. If a student skips a word or adds a word, both of those count against a student. But repetition doesn't. By itself, it doesn't. So if the student repeats the wrong word, it's still wrong. And so it still counts against the student. If the student repeats a correct word, it still counts as a correct. And really, that's a good checking tool. So we want students to repeat. So it does not count against the student. Self-corrects don't count against the student. They got there eventually. But the wonderful thing about self-corrects is there's an error there that we can analyze, and we can also try to figure out how they self-corrected it. Those are nice meaty data chunks that we can use. But anytime if student says just the sounds or a letter name, but not the whole word, those are all partial answers. Those are all incorrect answers. So anytime we get this fraction format, anytime the student makes that error, or miscue as it's called in the biz, you end up with, you count those against the student. Okay. And there are some optional wait, did I get that one? Yes. There are some optional markings as well that could be useful for you. So you should know that appeals, you can use an A. I circled the A, but appeal means the student was either, like looking, how they do that pause and look, like, come on, tell me the answer right here. This is where you do that. Or they could say, what's this? Or, any kind of thing where they're trying to get you to tell the answer. Those all would count as an appeal. And some kids have a pretty prominent appeal behavior. And if so, you instead of giving them the answer, you might want to just drop your head and put the A. Drop your head and put the A every time they do it, just to kind of keep track. And then over time, you're hoping that they will become independent and you'll see less of those. So that's an option that you could use to track a particular behavior for your student. Another thing, much like appealing, is pausing. There are students that have really prominent pausing behavior. And pausing can be evidence of confusion or thought. So it's a good thing to keep track of. I had a student, though, Nathaniel, I'll never forget this kid, who paused forever. He would pause for minutes between words consistently. And I found out because I had him one-on-one. I was his reading teacher, and his teacher, of course, in the classroom couldn't wait and find out what he was doing, but I could. And I found out he was rereading in his head silently, which is very hard to do. He was a second grader, but it was still very hard because he was a very struggling reader. And it took him so long and so much time to do that. He was rereading, and problem solving, and then he'd come up with the right things. So, and he was really understanding the meaning. He was doing a bunch of amazing things, but it was painful to watch. So while he was doing that, I was counting. I was counting the seconds. And that's one good thing for pausing behavior. If it's a long pause, you can count the seconds, and that'll keep you from jumping out of your skin, in addition to being really useful data. And again, you want that pausing behavior to start to subside, get shorter, and get less less common in the readings. So that's another thing you can keep track of. What can you say to your student? You can praise behavior, like how they're following directions and doing what they were supposed to be doing. You can, a lot of times, when a student gets to struggling and they're looking at you and appealing or even pausing, you might want to distract if they look stuck. Try to distract with praise, like, I really like reading with you, or I appreciate you helping me today. Just really kind of changing the subject, and sometimes they pick up and go ahead. If they look like they're starting to suffer, you can remind them that mistakes are expected and that you don't have to get every word right with me. You're doing great. But be careful. You really don't want to coach them. You want to find out what they can do successfully independently. So try that again is actually a strategy, so you won't want to say that. There are actually books out there, books I've used to teach, that said that was appropriate for a writing record. It really isn't. And even guess is a really good strategy, because students are often guessing. Basically, it's trying that again and using the more information that they've got in their head. And it's actually a strategy. So trying it again, giving it that next try, are actually strategies that we're going to be using. You want to make sure that they could do that independently. And if they don't, you want to have the data that explains that to you. Even skip it is dangerous, although you can use it if you've got a student that's really about to melt down. The danger is that probably 50% of the time that student will start skipping every word that they don't know, and you'll get really bad data. So, use your best judgment. An accuracy rate is basically the number of words they got right over the number of words in the book, in the passage that they read. So, if you've got a student that's making up things, that the number of words they got right minus the number of errors, they might have more errors than actually words in the book. So they could have a negative accuracy rate in those cases. But boy, you learned a lot. And the accuracy rate is actually how you tell if they pass or fail. So if they're 89% and below, that is considered frustration. They're frustrated by that level. And the idea is that if they don't get 10% of the words, that it will likely impact their ability to use meaning, even if they're not using meaning, they can't be expected to get much out of it. So they're going to start reading differently at those levels. Kind of every kid starts learning disabled, so the data becomes not as good. So that's considered frustration. Pretty much 90% to 100% is pass. They pass it, you go on to the next level, and you keep going up until they frustrate. And as I said, you might want to check even then to make sure that that's where they're truly frustrating and that it's not just the book, that it just doesn't fit them for some reason. But so 90 to 100% is pass. Now, you may see this instructional versus independent. I hate these words. It's actually a misnomer that 90 to 95 is instructional. That's really not the way it's meant to be used. It's you find their frustration level, and then you instruct, especially when we're talking about first grade here. The stuff that Mari Clay created these things for. She designed it so that you would start instructing at one level or two levels even above their frustration level. because that way you get, you're sitting right next to them, you get some words that are challenging and you work through them with the student. But if you only use the instructional level, you're not going to get as much. So I kind of just glaze over instructional. To me, 90 to 100 is pass, and it shows that they're successful independently in both cases. Now, I kind of look at 90 to 95 as being instructional more for me because there's more errors and there's more things I can analyze. So just be cautious with that language. All right, so you keep going until you get to their level. Here's what's more important than all that. Cues, meaning, structure, visual, or semantics, syntax, and graphophonics. Just what we said before. Meaning has to do with anything you get meaning from. So books, the book might include the background, the information, picture, and that's key here. Remember, there's visual information, but that does not include the picture. Your meaning comes from the picture. Visual information is going to include other things, so be careful with that. It's different than Gardner. Mari Clay didn't know Gardner, so it wasn't purposeful, but we're stuck with the language. Structure has to do with the structure of language, and how kind of words go together in our language. So, you often have a noun first, a verb next. There's indefinite articles, there's adjectives and adverbs, and where they go. We can have certain expectations based on that. Also, so when we say that a structure, that structure should sound right in our language, we're saying that if I told you, oh gosh, this is always so hard for me, because if I said, kick, oh gosh, kick, the kick, high, ball, level, you'd look at me like I was insane. It doesn't sound right in our language. Or if I was messing with pasts when I was talking about the future, it would grind on you because, what? Wait, what? That's not, it doesn't sound right to our ears if we're talking in English about things. So, so structure is really about the structure of language and not about the structure of the word. So it's not about breaking the word down into sounds or anything like that. So be careful with that. Again, I didn't create this vocabulary, these terms. I've been stuck with them for as long as I've been doing this. So it's our cross to bear as reading teachers. Visual is really talking not about pictures, but about letters and sounds. So the visual they're talking about is how the letters go on the page. So for us, it's for English, we're talking about the alphabet, we're talking about spaces in between, we're talking about periods, punctuation that approximates kind of sentence ends or pauses or excited, like an exclamation point versus a question mark. So those kind of visual indicators of communication and how they fit, those will all be part of what a student learns about the visual information in a book. So it's really about how those letters connect with sounds too. So phonics is in this section. All right. Does that all sound familiar to most of you? Anybody lost? Am I going too fast? Too slow? Okay. kind of looking at, flipping through the pages of the class here, trying to see you all. But you all seem all right. Good. No panics, and not too bored. So that's good. So, so what we're looking for in our running record is going to be the patterns of meaning, structure, and visual. So we're going to be analyzing each error and the self-corrects as well to find out if the student is using meaning and or structure and or visual. As you know, we can use them together, we can use them separately. And the validity of this thing isn't in the individual analyses. So just one analysis, one of our analyses might be off. So I could be wrong about why the student said the for A, but if there's a big pattern of those kinds of errors, and I start seeing that pattern, suddenly the preponderance of evidence becomes more valid. So that's where those patterns across errors, across books, across days, are where we're going to find the real stuff. So we can argue back and forth all day long about one little error, and it's not going to make a big difference. But we're looking for those patterns that go across all of this. That's going to be the meat of the story here. So let's practice a little bit. Let's look at visual. So here's an example. In this case, the student said, you notice the running records right underneath so that you can see, check, 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 check. I like to see here's at the farm. You can see it didn't make much sense, right? And structurally, here's can't fit there. I like to see here's. It's, you know, you don't see a here's. It's not a noun in that sense. So we need, so grammatically, here's is out. But the student said here's. What was the student using? Probably some of those letters. To try, they were thinking, oh, the H, the R, maybe there's an S on the end. Maybe it's here's, you know, using the letter information that they've, so they were using visual. And that's one of the really important pieces here. This assessment doesn't, I'm going to use a double negative here, bear with me, doesn't use what the student doesn't use. Doesn't use what the student, we're not looking for what the student doesn't use. What we are looking for what the student is using. So it's not a deficit model test. So many assessments are trying to identify what the student isn't using or is missing. In this case, we are looking for what the student is able to do and able to use. Does that make sense? So they're using the knowledge of letters and sounds to come up with here's for horses. Structure. In this example, this student reads, I like to fly horses at the farm. Well, I do too. So in this case, the student was thinking about fly. It was using a verb. Kind of knew that using that guess check system, that thinking ahead piece that we talked about last time, to predict that a verb would be there. But they weren't really thinking about the meaning, about what a horse could do, right? if they, maybe this, hopefully this book had a horse on the page or something, but they didn't use it. So they chose fly, and fly doesn't have any letters or sounds in common with see. So the student must have been using structure, that verb piece, the grammatical piece, to come up with that guess. Meaning-wise, the student might have said, I like to see ponies at the farm. Now again, ponies doesn't have a lot of letters and sounds in common with horses. But I would say it does have a similar meaning. So if you've got a picture of a pony or a picture of a horse, they can kind of look a lot alike. So though the meaning is close enough where the student might be using some of the meaning. And in this case, you'll notice the S is also bolded because ponies and horses actually represent a similar grammatical thing. They're both nouns and they're both plural here. So the student might be thinking of both structure and meaning in this case. And that happens quite a bit, not only with meaning and structure, but that the student would use 2 cues or even 3. And that's really what we're trying to get them to do. That's called cross-checking cues. And using more than 1 cue is a good thing. All right. So, all right. Yeah, this is, I think, key. I kind of forgot about this. Do not assume that meaning cues are being used if the substitution results in an acceptable, meaningful English sentence. So if a student says, I like to see houses at the farm, and you're like, well, houses are at the farm, they must be using meaning. Maybe not, think about that. Were they really using, think about the meaning of the book and the things that they knew up to that very word. Now, you don't have to worry about anything after, because the student hasn't read that part yet. They can't be held accountable for what comes after. But up to that point in the book, should they know that it couldn't be houses? You'll have to consider that. So each book, it's going to take some intellectual analysis here from the reading teacher. At that moment, what would the student know? What should the student know? And are they using meaning or not in this case? So that's why we use actually the dots or the checks to indicate right answers, because if you're stuck and you're like, I don't know, you can always go back to the passage or the book and use those dots to figure out which time the student said houses for horses, and dig that out and try and make those determinations. So that's why we don't just put the errors, because that leaves us vulnerable. That's why the checks are so important, or you're going to be stuck analyzing without the right data. All right, this is important. So those of you that have kind of faded off, who use a lot of running records, come on back, because I don't know that you have this, and I think it's super important. And this is translations. It doesn't often get taught in introductory running record situations. So I want to make sure everybody knows it. And this is the case. And it's called translations, and it is in running records because of the fact that Ken and Yetta Goodman created oral reading inventories using students that had multiple languages. And the idea here is that translations, when a reader translates the reading into their own language or uses pieces of their own language appropriately when reading, that isn't considered an error and doesn't account against the student. So let's say that again. If a reader translates the text into their dialect, for example, says ain't for isn't, or their own language, for example, saying see for yes, that isn't considered an error and doesn't count against the student. Okay, now I'm sure you're having a lot of questions if you haven't run across this before. Like, whoa, how would I know that? So there's some research that needs to be done. And this, for example, as when you're reading, if a student starts putting verbs at the end and they're German, it's because of their German grammatical expectations. And maybe just moving it isn't enough to say that they don't understand it. And let me explain why. Well, let me give you an example you've probably all done before. If you've read out loud to students, have you ever said, instead of saying, let's say that it's in the book, it says, and you said said. Have you ever done that before? I see some nods. I know I have. So when you're doing that, you might be just bending to the one that's comfortable for you, knowing that it really doesn't change the meaning or the grammar or any of that, but you're kind of translating it into something that's comfortable for you. When second language students or students translate into their own dialect, it's because they're having comfort with the reading. They understand it and they're using everything that is comfortable for them. If a student is comprehending, they don't necessarily focus on hyper accuracy. They're focusing on the content here, their comprehension, their meaning, their structure, their yes. But sometimes those can slip because their focus on meaning becomes more important. If you're reading and you say says for said, how many of you stop and say, wait, let me correct that, it is said. When you're doing that with students, you wouldn't you really wouldn't normally, because the kid doesn't care, right? And the whole point of reading aloud to children is usually so that they can enjoy the story. They can comprehend. And if you disrupt that by focusing so much on that little word that didn't mean anything different, really, you disrupt their comprehension. So a good reader is often translating kind of in their head into, like, oh, well, when the book says this, I know that kind of means this, and they're approximating in their head, and they're translating, they're crunching it, they're hopefully really understanding it and using the information. So when they do a translation, it's actually a higher level of comprehension, understanding, a higher level of reading, and it absolutely does not count against the student. And this is how running records can be used to differentiate a strong reader with a second language from a student with reading difficulties. Very, very important, but it takes a skilled assessor and someone who really understands reading to do it. And before I go on, I'm going to stop share real quick. How many of you have heard that before? Sarah, you did? Excellent. Tamika did. Good. I'm glad to hear some of you did. But it's very important. I'm just curious. All right. Oh, look at the time. Okay, so I'm just gonna fly through here a little bit. Self-corrections. When you analyze self-corrections, don't forget this. Many of you know, you analyze both the cue, the error, and how they self-corrected it. That is probably the number one thing people forget to do. They'll just analyze one. Mostly it's the self-correction. They'll put something in that column, but they're distinct. You want to find out what the student is doing first and what the student is doing second. And in this case, they're very distinct. So you might find very different patterns between what the student is able to do in an error and how they self-correct it. They might use, with errors, 99% of the time they use meaning. And then when they self-correct, they're always using visual. If you see, you want to get that information and you want to keep those two pieces of the student's approach distinct. There's cross-checking. We've already talked about this. And analyzing analysis. Oh, well, we don't have time for that. Searching and self-correcting. So you're looking, these are other things you can look for. Is the student self-monitoring, kind of paying attention? Are they monitoring for meaning, structure, and visual? Are they self-correcting? Do you notice them looking up at you like, ooh, that didn't sound right? That could be evidence of monitoring without being evidence of, without a self-correction, but that they knew something was wrong. And once they know something is wrong, that's a great place to stop and instruct. But, in an assessment, you're just trying to identify those places. Are they searching? Active searching for information? Do they go back a page or two? Do they go back and research when they don't understand something? Are they self-correcting at all? Some kids don't think that's cheating. they don't stop. They just barrel through. So look for evidence of those things. Now, I know we are kind of at a pausing point. So before we go on, do you feel like you have a good sense of running records and where they're going to fit for us here? Okay. So you know where you're going to plug them in your assessments as well? You know where you're going to do them when you're assessing your student? All right. I didn't see as many nods, but come back. We can come back there as well. I'm giving you your homework at this point, and your homework is, if you have a student begin assessing, I think many of you are still kind of working through that. That's okay too. Sign up for video presentations. That's all on the first day, but the first day list, but those links are still there. I'm going to give you a dyslexia reading. I haven't decided on it yet. I will give it to you ASAP, but I've got a couple of new ones that I'm really excited about. So I haven't picked it yet. And then, but this is the most important. Read your IRI or your assessment battery, whether it's PALS, observation survey, BRI, or QRI, and start to figure out how you're going to present that to us. And on that note, I want us to take a 5-minute break, and while you're in the 5-minute break, I will set up breakout rooms for you so that you can meet with your same people and for a little bit. And I will be in here in the main room. I'll try to show you how to get in and out of the rooms as well. And that way you guys can conspire with your groups, and I will be here until the end of class and after for questions. And I know some of you have questions that are more advising as well. So I'm here for those as well. Does that make sense how we're going to end class? I won't have as much control at the end. So I know that some of you are are just going to kind of fade away from me. That's okay. All right. Well, let's take a 5-minute for now, and we'll get those breakout rooms ready, and so you can hit the ground running in those. Thanks. Lydia, did you have a question? Oh, I can't hear you.
My fault, sorry.
That's all right.
Quick question. You said to start the assessments. Like if I just start with like a running record of my students, should I be videotaping that also? Or do I just videotape like my BRI?
If you, anything is fine. You can start with the running record.
Okay.
It's not a bad idea either, because, it's a nice backup, because running records are sometimes hard to keep up with.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Sure. All right.
Speaking of that, when we do the videos, do we videotape everyone, and then when we present it, we just show one to the class?
That's not a bad idea, because kids, if you bring out a video camera, they start to behave in weird ways. The shy ones become crazy. The crazy ones become shy. I've got crazy kids and shy kids. So it's not a bad idea to at least have them thinking you're recording every time. Yeah. But then it can shut down some kids too. So use your best judgment.
Okay.
Alrighty. And Hannah, if you're here,
Yeah.
what did I put you in? Did I put you
Oh,
in?
I was going to ask you that. I mean, I use PALS to assess my students anyways, so could I use PALS?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, sounds
That's
good.
actually where I put you because I thought that was our discussion.
Okay.
I'm so
And then
proud of me.
going off of like Lydia's question and Anna's question, so when I do PALS, like there's portions that I do whole group, like the spelling inventory.
That's fine.
I don't do that individually, and even like our word lists, it's all online. And I'm trying to think like what else second grade is. So if I videotaped my PALS assessment, I don't know if we would actually see much.
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, and actually that's what when you're thinking about what to videotape, think about something that is going to be most
Okay.
useful.
Okay,
That's
that would
not going to
probably
be very
just be
handy.
like running records or maybe like a sight word list or something.
Exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. All right, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. And when I open this up, it'll say for you to go into the room. But you can leave the room. Like you see right now in the bottom right-hand side of our window, it says end meeting. I believe that will say kind of go back to the main room when you're in a breakout room. So that's how you can kind of return. That's how I usually do it. But in addition, if you have the breakout room list, like if you hover on our little window, there's a little breakout room symbol. If you click on that, it'll tell you where you are and you can move into different rooms from there as well. So there's a couple of different ways that you might be able to do it, whatever's more comfortable for you. So I'm going to open up the rooms now and you can click on them to go.
So Tana, Ash and I figured out our plan where we don't know much, so we're going to do our research in the next week. Is there anything else, like, should I wait for your final comments, or are we good to go? Okay. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yes, you can head off and figure. You know, you're already thinking about the BRI. Probably is it the BRI?
Yeah. Well, we have a plan of action. We have to, you know, read the book, and then we're gonna talk back next week.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Bye.
Bye.
There we go.
Hello.
Perfect. We have lots of questions.
Yeah.
So it's nice that it's just us and you right now.
Bring it.
So go really fast.
That's fine.
I think our first question is, are we presenting on PALS next week? Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So
Yeah.
what exactly are we just talking? Are we showing? Do I have to prepare a paper?
No paper.
Okay,
But see it this way. You're telling the rest of these people who have never done PALS,
Yes.
likely,
Okay.
how to do it and what's involved in it.
Okay, so what we planned on is like we can bring like somebody will show like a paper assessment, and then we'll like share the screen for the PALS website.
Yes.
And talk about it. Okay.
Perfect.
My one concern with like if we share a screen and I'll have to look, so I don't know if it'll work, is like all my student names might pop up. So if I have like student first names and last names, we might not be able to share a screen. I just thought of that.
Right. Well, you know,
I'll look.
You might want to think, yeah,
Or I could screenshot things and put them in like a PowerPoint, and then I could share the PowerPoint that way. If that
Or
works.
maybe you could just show like the tests. Like you could pull up the test and share it.
Oh, like the task? Yeah. I could do that.
And I mean, Windows, if the I don't know if the name is on the top. But
Yeah. Okay. Usually they're on like a sidebar. So yeah, I can go into the test for a student before I share it or something, so I can figure it out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll find out
this weekend.
All right.
So, yeah.
Or you can always just take a picture, you know, with a sticky note over there.
Right. So it sounds good. I'll figure something out.
Okay.
I got it.
I had another question. So I know we're talking all about running records. So are my running records going to be separate, or am I supposed to do a running record on like the Humpty Dumpty rhyme from PALS?
You know what? I don't want to break up. I think you should do one separate, because the Humpty Dumpty rhyme.
It's memorization. All the test is 1-to-1.
Right, exactly. And you're not going to get much from your running record, but give a really, really early book, like a one, you know.
I think there are like pre-A, because that's what I'll have to use is pre-A at this point.
Yeah, or even a true A. Like a true A is like the zoo, and then there's a picture of a bear.
The cat,
bear.
the dog. Yeah.
Right. So often, you know, people dig up these A's that are really advanced, but a true A. Yeah.
Okay, and how often are we supposed to be recording those running records?
You only have to video them or show us one.
Okay. All right.
Or one, you know, one video.
Okay.
But as I was saying to somebody else, you know, kids act differently when they're being videotaped. So you may want to put that video out there or the camera out there more often to, you know.
So it's not like the 30 minutes a week needs to be recorded every week.
God, no. God, no.
Okay.
God, no.
All right.
Really, you only need that 10 or whatever.
Okay. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you.
Then like 2 questions for me. So for my third grade babies who are reading at a kindergarten, first grade level, I'm going to use the PALS assessment as like kind of my summative assessment, right? I'm going to do it once, I'm going to do it again in the middle of the year, I'm going to do it again at the end of the year.
Right.
Then I'm going to use my running records as like my formatives. Okay.
Well, you know, we're going to talk about all of that. So, but yeah, but definitely this is summative. Yeah.
Okay, so then I think our other question as a group was the paper that we have to write on the IRI. So do we have to do that on PALS, or are we doing that on the thing we signed up for?
You're doing it on PALS. Oh, wait. Okay. Wait. There's two papers. There is a research paper on a tool that you signed up for. And there's a presentation with that. So there's that. It's a short paper, but it's about the research base, right? Is that the paper you're talking about?
Which is what we signed up for. Like I signed up for
Correct.
Word list, sight words.
Yeah. There is also kind of a report about the assessments. Like, what does this mean? But we haven't really talked much about that. So I don't know if you think, I don't want to say there is nothing else, but you know, we haven't really talked about it. Don't worry about it yet. But there is that was confused. Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that helped.
Good. Okay. Then.
And then I guess I just had a question about the running records. So we're not, like, my district doesn't require oral reading passages done through PALS. We just use Fountas and Pinnell. If I videotape my student, can it be an F&P running record rather than PALS?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. I didn't know if it all had to like match or align. Okay, sounds good.
God, no. And Fountas and Pinnell is actually closer to Clay than most of the other stuff anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
Because I do. We were meeting with our group, and I guess we don't quite understand what is expected for our presentation.
Okay. I have kind of given that little short shrift. I've been kind of running through. And basically, it's just explaining to the group how to use it. You're going to read it all. You're going to give it to your students and stuff. You're going to know a lot more. But I want you to share with the rest of the people who aren't going to be doing that, who maybe never encountered it before. Share what's in it and how you do it.
Okay, is it going to be in a setting like this?
Yes.
Doing it? Okay.
We are just gonna, it's just an informal thing, just like I was looking through running records and, with you and kind of talking about it and everything. Those are very involved. You don't have to do an extensive one like that, but for you guys, sharing your screen, showing the group, okay, this is that,
So a PowerPoint would be beneficial, or?
That's a nice anchor,
Okay. Sounds good.
Sorry about that, but yes, sorry that I didn't really go over it, but yeah, that's exactly what you want to do.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions? Hi, buddy.
When are we doing these presentations?
Well, okay, on the syllabus, the PALS people are going to do it next week, actually. And then the observation survey people are going to do it the following week. And basically, we're going to be working our way up. And then the third week, the BRI and the QRI people are going to talk about their stuff. So in the next 3 weeks, we should be going over all of them.
Okay.
Because on the syllabus, it says October 3rd for IRI presentations.
Yes, I that's the original syllabus. I updated the syllabus. That was the one before class that I sent you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
No one, the updated one.
Okay.
Alrighty. Yay. Well, those of you that don't have any questions, you can go ahead and enjoy your day, what's left of it. So, and those of you who do have questions, please hang around. I'd love to talk. Bye.
Oh. So I had a quick advising question for you.
Okay.
So a few weeks ago, before summer had ended, you had emailed me wanting to set up an appointment for a transcript evaluation, but then I had never heard anything back. So I was wondering if we could still do that or if I still need to. So
You'll still want to. So
Okay.
let's definitely do that. And I'm looking at the time, and I know I have to talk with Alyssa. So what's your calendar look
it's pretty flexible.
like? Okay.
And especially like after school. So anytime after 4, I don't know if we could do it like through Zoom or
Yes.
anything. Okay,
That's
sounds good.
just fine.
So yeah, anytime after, let's say 4:30. Sometimes I get stopped by a parent. So anytime after 4:30.
Well, that means Monday is out because I teach at 5. So,
Okay, sounds good.
so how's your Tuesday look?
Next week Tuesday is great.
So
that would be the 18th.
the 18th, you want to say 5 o'clock?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And we'll
Perfect.
just, we'll come to this same room. Let me send you a link because I don't know that Sichuan is free.
Okay.
So I'll look for, I'll make sure that I'll get a link for us.
All right, sounds good. So next week, Tuesday at 5.
That's right.
All right.
5 o'clock Zoom, get room. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. All righty.
Hi. Okay, so I did kind of figure it out. I think I'm just gonna keep the one class.
Okay.
I actually get some money from my school for the semester. I was gonna just wait and use that for summer, but I think just to avoid the whole being behind, enrolling late, all of that, I think I'm just gonna go that route.
Well, I will say that 700 and 799 are both just independent studies with me. So you can
Okay.
easily add those without being behind.
Okay.
There might be a little bit with a late add.
Okay.
There might be a fee. So, but,
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go and upstairs tomorrow and talk to HR about how long is it gonna take for all of that, because this is obviously my first semester in grad school since I've been there. So I don't know how exactly. I didn't even know there was the whole you needed a certain requirement for this certain financial aid, all that stuff. So I learned that.
Now, have you already applied for financial aid and they gave it to you?
Yes.
Now,
so then I got an email saying that I did, after they already gave it to me and I did the accepting and all that, then they sent me an email saying that I didn't meet the course requirement.
Okay. And are you a master's student?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I'm just checking off things in my,
Yeah.
possible issues. And okay. So it is my impression. See, and I don't even want to say this because back in the day when I did it, it was only 4 credits that I had to take to be part-time.
Yeah. Well, and they did say something about the 4 credits thing, saying that you wouldn't even qualify for any financial aid unless you're at 4 credits.
Right.
So I emailed them and I said, for spring semester, I'm taking these credits. In summer, I'm taking these. And right now I'm in this. And she said, I will take note of that. I'll add that on for your spring semester. So maybe my spring semester might be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'm at 4 for that, because that one class is 1 credit. Or is it 6? I don't remember. I think I have the paper here.
Let me see. You sent it to me too.
Because I'm doing in spring 748 with 700 and 799. So I think that's 6, right?
Yeah, that is. And that's
Okay.
why I was saying we can move one of those to this term.
Okay.
So you can move the 799. That's an independent study with me.
Okay. I'm thinking tomorrow what I'll do is I'll go upstairs and talk to HR. And if it's quick and easy and I don't have to worry about UWM knocking on my door for their money. I don't know. I just hope I don't run into the problem where all of a sudden you are no longer enrolled because the process took too long.
No. But if we could switch that so easily.
Okay.
It might. You just have to see. If I were you, I would add 799 tonight.
Okay.
And see if you can add it. If you can't add it, we'll go from there. But
so what exactly is 799?
It is. It's an independent study with me. Let me give you The number.
Content area reading for
the reading specialist.
Okay.
And that is, let me see.
And that one's only one. That one's the interview one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now let's see, education.
I mean, does it matter if I don't add it with 700?
No, it doesn't at all.
So it's just the whole 1 credit interview thing, and that would put me at 4, and then I would be fine.
Right. It's more than just an interview, but it is that class. Yes.
Yeah, the one where I match up with one of the administrators.
Correct. It's a
Okay.
good class to take, and you're going to have to take it anyway, and so it's
And
not,
it wouldn't really matter if I don't take it with 700.
not at all. Lots of people separate them.
Okay. Okay, maybe that's it. Maybe that is what I'll do.
So it's Curran's, 799 section 005 course number. I'm putting this in. I'm putting it in the chat. So hopefully you just got a chat so that you can get all the details here.
Okay.
Let me just double check. I got that. 1349. Yes.
Let me go to pause. Because I would think, because they said something about you won't even qualify for financial aid unless you're at the minimum of 4 credits.
Right.
So
And I've heard that before.
I would be fine.
Yes. So as long as you add this one course, and I can walk you through it. It's not a heavy course.
Okay.
And you're not behind.
Okay, good. Because I know I told you when we had that meeting, this year is crazy with all the new curriculum. And I'm just, I do feel like I'm doing well with it, but I don't want to get to the point where I feel like I'm not doing well because I gave myself too much work.
This is not that kind of course.
Okay, perfect. Then that's what I'll do.
And if you run into trouble, and here I am eating in front of you.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm using your time.
No, this is your time. Anyway, if you run into trouble, I'll tell you right away, I am very fine with people who privilege their jobs. That if you need an incomplete that goes into, December, January, when we're not having classes, and to catch up and to, you've got it.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, it's just, obviously every teacher has the same problems, but we literally, in the past year, we've gotten 4 new curriculums. So it's a lot right now.
Oh, I
feel like I'm reading nothing but Lucy Calkins books at all times.
And it's really hard to wrap your head around.
Reading, writing, and phonics, a book for it. I feel like all I spend all day long is rereading her lessons.
Well, and it's if you're doing all of that at once, I've heard people do 1 at a time, but
yeah, and we just started Eureka last year too. So pretty much everything is new. So I just want to continue to feel like I'm doing my job well.
I will say there are people in this class that might be able to help.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to enroll. There we go. Oh, I have to click it. Finish. Okay, it says I'm enrolled. This class has been added to your schedule.
All right. Now, that class, I haven't switched over from D2L yet. So it's still on D2L. Look for it there. It has everything that you're going to need. But your first job is just to find an administrator willing to work with you. And
okay, yep, I already asked her that when we were meeting about phonics, and she was totally fine with it.
See, oh my gosh, you're not even behind, you're ahead. So you're good.
It'll get to like October, and I'll be like, oh my god, I'm so far behind.
That's okay. That's okay. You won't be alone either. The whole class will be like, me too, me too.
Okay, wonderful.
It's okay. All right. Well,
Okay,
problem solved.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked you. I was like, I know you're not a financial aid person, but I don't know what to do.
Well, but this is program stuff. I can tell you how to, add on. You got the information, so thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.